Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about how they became successful and all the struggles that they overcame. And today I have my amazing friend, Dan Thompson. I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. Hi guys, I'm Dan Thompson, the founder and CEO at Sensei. A bit of a mixed bag of entrepreneurship. I think I've always had the bug ever since I was a teenager. I started my first sort of small businesses all the way back then, right the way through to having a chain of 23 restaurants and bars up until the pandemic, which unfortunately closed them all down. And then a mixed bag of Web3 and AI ever since. And now I'm Sensei, which is a platform where we actually do AI offboarding and knowledge transfer for departing employees, people who are retiring, and just people who are generally like leaving companies that often leave the rest of their teams feeling a bit overwhelmed with trying to catch up and understand where they were with certain projects, teams, clients, customers. And so we make that seamless using AI and then deploying their knowledge as an AI chatbot interactive into your existing systems like Slack, Teams, Discord, Telegram.
Amazing. Love that. That's so cool that you've had such a so many experiences in your background and your entrepreneurial journey. I guess, how did you get started, like in the very beginning when you started bars and restaurants?
Yeah, I kind of fall into it from an early age. I think when I was 15, started coffee shops and then started working in coffee shops, then pubs, then bars, then cocktail bars. And then someone took a bit of a gamble on me to, launch a cocktail bar in London. But then my first sort of ones myself were literally started on a Saturday market. I started, first cocktail bar was actually, someone, took a part of me and brought me in as a partner to launch a new cocktail bar based off my experience. But then after that, in terms of really my own things, well, it started off as juice bars, and that started off, like I said, as a Saturday market stall. I think I bought myself a juicer, went down the market stall, and started selling, and then that grew into different pop ups, different opportunities across London, and then turned into actual stores, which then turned into cafes, bars, restaurants, and the full work. So there's kind of lots of like opportunistic jumping on different opportunities whenever anything came along, but yeah, a lot of like stretching every penny we had to kind of, expand arguably probably a bit too quickly. And restaurants and bars, hospitality in general are quite a challenging business all around. But yeah, no, I loved it. It was a very, very fun time. But I think the first one literally just started by, starting, like literally just getting a juicer and some fruit and putting myself in a position where someone might actually want some. And I think that a lot can be said for just, getting out there and doing it rather than people spending like ages building out these perfect like 50-page business plans that don't really ever go anywhere because you're just constantly trying to perfect the plan rather than actually just getting out there. And I actually, funny enough, I'm going to pull up a quote that I actually read today, which kind of goes along to this, and I shared it with our team this morning because I really liked it. But it was something along the lines of, most people overthink everything. You can't swim unless you jump in the pool, so you've got to start swimming, and it's just about just getting started. I think the same has applied to me, and pretty much every idea I've ever had or every business I've started has just been a case of right getting out there and getting started in some form or another, for better or worse.
Love that. That's great. I definitely hear that from a lot of entrepreneurs. Then how did you make the transition from hospitality and to Web3 and AI? Like, how did you gain that knowledge, technical knowledge?
I mean, same way. I guess I have any knowledge for any of the businesses. I didn't. I think it's a lot of fake it till you make it. A lot of just wanting to do something. And go from hospitality into that. I mean, it was a pandemic, so everything got moved online. There wasn't really opportunity and to do anything else at the time. And I think I just had, out of general interest and just ideas that came along and applying some of the skill set that you can transfer. So restaurants and bars have a lot of marketing expertise that you need because it's such a fast paced industry and highly competitive and you need to really stand out. And the good marketers, a lot of the skills are transferable. Sure, the technical understanding and knowledge that comes along and with a bit of personal interest goes a long way. Jumping into the AI field, though, was a bit different because I'd actually had an interest in that for a long time. I'd actually written two books around mind uploading and digital immortality and this concept of creating a digital version of myself that can live on forever after I've passed away. And so when it came to when it literally it was 3 years ago now, so when ChatGPT got launched to the public properly, and I knew I'd written these books around this exact topic. So I was like, well, I have to do this because otherwise someone else will do it. I'll feel very, very bad if someone else actually does this. And so it set us on this path towards building these virtual humans and this like digital clones of ourselves which is where Sensei, started off looking at and will come back to, but realizing that along the way, that by building out these virtual humans of the digital twins of people and virtual humans, part of the aspects of that and the use case of that is to capture the knowledge and experience of the elderly and pass it on to generations to come. And we realize that the same problem happens when people leave companies, when they retire, when they're just, leaving a company, that knowledge kind of goes with them and is lost to the company. So how can you take that concept of digital immortality for a B2C consumer and apply it in a B2B way? And that's basically how the foundations of what Sensei is today has came to be.
I love that. And so when you started Sensei, did you bootstrap it? Were you able to raise money right away?
Yeah, I bootstrapped it myself for the first 9 months, and then we actually fundraised in a slightly different way to most people would. We did a crypto token sale, so we actually launched our own ICO, which fundamentally came from a background of having worked in Web3 for a while. A lot of luck with timing. We were very lucky with the narrative at the time, and we had a bit of experience in launching tokens already from previous projects we've worked on. So we knew that there was an opportunity to raise money that way in a way that wouldn't have been possible in traditional markets. So we actually ended up raising around $3.4 million without any sort of VCs or retail. But a lot of that comes down to the luck of timing of the market and the luck of being on the right narrative at the right time, which isn't always the case for a lot of projects that launch. And especially now, more and more, I think there's lots of projects that are launching that don't have that opportunity because of the meme coin craze of last year. And so the finance isn't quite flowing into projects in the same way it was, just to do with the time of the market as well. But for us, yeah, so fundamentally, uh, technically we've bootstrapped and self-funded the whole thing. And we're going into equity fundraisers soon for VC capital and actually raise money that way. But yeah, to date we are self-funded the whole way.
That is really awesome. A crypto token sale. So how did you like get the word out and publicize the token so that people would know to buy it?
Blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, this is where this the marketing aspect comes back, right? So it's just a
Mhm.
case of, in the same way that fundraising might take that amount of time, it might, it's just a case of getting in front of enough people and selling what you're doing and believing in what you're going to launch as a project. The early conversations were all tough. There was all lots of no's, bringing people into the team who were working for like future tokens to help promote the project, getting the social campaigns, getting out in front of the right communities, but genuinely just, every single day, just pushing that slog and then getting in front of the right people and making sure that the product is in the right place, getting into the community calls on the podcasts, on, wherever else we could to actually talk about what we were doing and, speaking to the right people who would come into the project at the right time. And then using certain sort of snowball mechanisms where you had some good deals to start off with that maybe sold out quickly. So they showed there was appetite and demand for it. And, again, it was just a lot of luck of timing. People were, understanding that AI projects at that time were doing very, very well. And so people, basically just bought in at that time and they did well out of it at the start. So yeah, we can't really complain, and it wouldn't even matter. But even if I could say we could do the exact same thing now, it wouldn't have the same result at this point in time.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's just getting in front of the right buyers and the right communities to line up the money to actually come in and buy the token in the belief that the team is right, that the project is right, that we've actually got some working technology, and that the fundamentally that the token is going to go up.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And I know that you've been traveling a lot this year or for a few years now. How has that, I'm sure it's helped your ability to network with people in different countries and cities and go to where, these opportunities are, but how has that helped your business?
I would say it probably hasn't, in all honesty. Let's be honest. No, I mean, there are some aspects of, being very international and being able to speak a few languages and having a good understanding of different cultures and different people. I think that helps in social situations generally. But has it helped in terms of launching a business? I've been fairly public about this into quite a few different blog posts and podcasts and just my general sort of social media. I think the remote work sort of culture now is fantastic for anyone who's working a job, who's looking for a remote job or starting like a small company that only requires a few people to operate with. And I think that, and especially if you're on the same time zone as your customers and you're in the rest of your team, I think it can be done quite well. When you start expanding and trying to operate a remote business, literally from different time zones around the world. So we have people from Vancouver to Taiwan and everything in between, and we try and keep to European hours most of the time. But the reality becomes it's extremely hard to actually make sure you get enough overlap with your team. And even if it was the same time zone, I think you miss a lot of the interactions and additional benefits you have from being in the same area. The after work conversations, the staying a bit late to get something finished, the energy you can build off from other people for like, getting things done through being in the same offices. And while some people are very good and the senior people are very good at motivating themselves and getting things done and enjoying their work, the vast majority of people aren't quite that way. And even then, you still miss things or lose things because you're not in the same room. Even just walking past someone who's coming up with an idea, maybe on like a whiteboard or some kind of, I don't know, like whatever you're brainstorming an idea or something. Just being able to listen in or pop your head in and just see what's happening on your kind of break from your own work means you can contribute to different ideas and contribute to different teams that might stop them from going down a path that's they're going to waste a few days or a week or two of work on. Whereas when you're remote, you just don't have that opportunity to do that. So you might find out that two people have been working on the same problem for the last 2 weeks or the last week or the last day, and it's just time that could have been saved. I'm sure that still does happen in an office environment, and there are negatives to having office environments as well. But for me, as a business owner, having a remote only company it definitely has its challenges. And if I were to start again, I would definitely have an in-person office policy rather than remote only. But I know that would be a hard sell to the team right now, only just they're so international. And so it wouldn't work with our current company. But going forward, we might try and move towards having a sort of a main office in one location that we all, try and work from, or at least on that time zone, which might help the overlap a little bit.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that pains the traveler inside of me is pained by this because when I was working for someone else as a remote worker, I was traveling the world. I got to, I was still very disciplined. I still got my job done, and I would work probably more than if I was actually in an office because you kind of feel responsible and you feel like you should be always connected just to make sure. But as a business owner, no, and now I would definitely pretty much prefer to have an in person experience with the team.
Interesting. It's really fascinating. And yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There are certain benefits from being in the office, and just like you, I love to travel, so that would be tough for me, but that's very fascinating. Then I guess what is one of the biggest struggles that you've had to overcome either establishing this business or just in your entrepreneurial journey as a whole?
Um, I think with this one, essentially, the biggest problem is, we had this big dream based on these books that I wrote, and it's very science fiction, right? There's stories about this. There's TV episodes and movies around this kind of technology, this kind of idea of building a digital clone that can be you, act like you, and be extension of yourself online or into the future. So going from that and knowing that there are these big dreams of that to the reality that people aren't quite ready for it, or the positioning of it isn't quite there yet, or maybe just the technological limitations are too severe that you can't quite build it out. So we went from building something that we thought we would like to build and we thought people would want, which is always the wrong way of doing things. You should always start with what people want first and build something to solve it. To basically that realization, like having to go through these couple of iterations of the technology, of this big dream, of the thing that I have written books about and still believe in for the future, to having to adapt that to something that people actually want and actually solves a problem. And so that's taking up time and energy and massive amount of cost of everything really to get to that stage and learn that lesson the hard way. But now we're coming out the back of that. We learned that the hard way. We've listened to people. We've understood that there's a massive problem around knowledge loss in corporates and teams, and we've re-engineered our solution for that so that going forward we are solving that problem that people actually have and want to pay for as a software that they need to fix that problem. And so what that means now is that we're starting to see that validation come through. We're starting to see a lot of the traction and customers that we've been hoping for. Now it is a bit further away from this dream of digital immortality and virtual clones, but a lot of the foundations are there because fundamentally the knowledge is there. to add the face, the voice, the style over the top of it would be quite minimal to add back in, and we hope to get back to that. But in the meantime, we can actually build a reliable, sustainable business for quite a lot of companies around the world, a lot of organizations that have this problem, and grow it from there into something that becomes this um, large company that solves a massive problem, so that we can then build out these specialized projects for individuals later on.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, because when I was working in aerospace, that would have been very helpful or just a custom GPT or something, but this was before everything came out. But it was like the way that they were storing information. It wasn't Google Drive. What's that program? Confluence? It was just harder to use than Google Drive. You couldn't
Yeah.
just for some reason search a keyword and it would come up, and it would just take a long time to find the documents, and, like, even when people were structuring and putting in their information and all of the stuff, like, in the right way, it was still, like, very difficult, and it was like, "Okay, well, this is not a helpful tool, just kind of like more of a time suck." So,
Yeah.
that would really help. But I guess what's your ideal client profile then?
Yeah, so we're looking for companies with at least 200 employees. So they might have a churn rate of, 5, 10, 15%. So we're looking, companies that have at least, I guess, 10 people leaving in a year. Ideally, around about a thousand person company mark. So
Mhm,
that's probably about 100 people leaving a year, which means we can create roughly around 50 to 100 knowledge bases for them. So um, industries, everything from manufacturing, aerospace is a great example. Manufacturing, shipping, retail, utilities, telecom, industries that have a higher rate of retirees. So if you look at something like manufacturing industry as an example, in North America, the average age of people working in manufacturing is 25% of the people who work in manufacturing are over the age of 55. So they're going to be facing in the next 10 years a huge amount of retirements coming up. And even like in North America and Canada alone, you actually look and see that there are over 10,000 people retiring every single day. So even taking a fraction of that, for capturing that knowledge and passing it on, because that's a huge amount of knowledge just leaving the workforce every single day. Huge decades of experience. And a lot of the times they may have trained someone up who might leave sooner because younger generation aren't staying around any longer, or they might not have it written down because they type one finger at a time, which really slows down the process of actually documenting and turning this knowledge into explicit knowledge. So we've built this like AI interviewer where they can just sit on a phone call or on like a Zoom call or anything and talk to. She's called Sophia. Talk to Sophia for 20 minutes at a time, half an hour at a time, or an hour at a time, to capture as much of that sort of intricate knowledge about themselves and about the company as they can. So that basically means you capture that tacit knowledge in a really easy format, combining it with the existing explicit documents. So whether it's your Confluence or your Google Drive or your SharePoint, combining all that information together with this tacit knowledge interview, and then deploying that knowledge directly into your existing messaging systems like Slack or Microsoft Teams, so that the rest of the team has access to that knowledge going forward, so that when the new person does come in to replace them, their ramp up time is so much faster because they actually have access to that entire person's understanding, wisdom, and knowledge from the job role they've been doing for 5, 10, 15, 20 years sometimes.
mhm. Gotcha. That's amazing. That's really exciting, and I know that you hosted um, an event during Mexico Tech Week. How did that whole experience go for you in terms of, like, business development or relationship building and
Yeah, I'm so this kind of comes from the Web3. The time I was working Web3 for a while, I'd be, I was working on the business development and marketing side as CMO, and and the nice thing about that, it was really combined with the travel, so I could actually go and do all the different conferences around the world, and I'd go to these places, and the thing about Web3 at that time was they had so much money to spend on everything, and so
Mhm.
some of the events were crazy. Like, you go to a conference in Paris and someone would rent out the Eiffel Tower, which is mad. You don't even places and things you didn't even realize you could rent out or
Yeah.
would be rented out by these companies. And it was kind of like, how do you stand out creating events, when that happens? So, I really got into a good flow of creating unique events and ideas. Again, coming from a bit of hospitality background, solving simple things. You go to a conference and usually it's very noisy. There's not that many good places to work. The Wi-Fi is usually terrible. All this kind of stuff. So we come up with creative ways to fix some of these problems that were actually at the events themselves. Hosting like literally renting out the bar across the street and making sure it had good Wi-Fi, so that it was like a kind of a quiet space to go and work. But like create different, always creative events and different because you can't really stand out against the company that's got a massive budget to spend on an epic venue, and you can't really stand out on swag because there's always going to be someone who has gone to like the top quality swag place in the world and got some incredible stuff. So how can you be different? You can have things that are actually, I guess, useful, but or just have an interesting event that really digs into a specific niche. So yeah, for Mexico Tech Week, for example, we held a little sauna event for almost like a private invite list of VCs and entrepreneurs, and it was quite a big size sauna. So we had a decent group of maybe about 40 people come along, and yeah, from that, was just amazing networking. And the best reason for that was every other event in Mexico Tech Week was like had some kind of panel, and you go there and you just got end up just I don't know talking for a couple of minutes with people you already knew before a
Mhm.
panel started, and basically took up everyone's attention and made everyone
Mhm.
go quiet. Whereas with the sauna, you don't do a panel. Everyone's basically already naked. Then you're in and out of an ice bath every like 15 minutes, so you really get a chance to sort of rotate and meet everyone. So you build this really good connection with a small group of people, which is probably more valuable than meeting 10 times as many people at some of these other events where you might get like 5 minutes of their time. So for me, that works well, and it stood out as one of the different events. For people, they said, "Oh, it's great to go and do something that's like healthy and wellness, but also just different and almost relaxing." So it's not just like drinking; it's not just another party. Or in Mexico, it was all tacos and tequila, everything, every event, right? So nice to nice to change it up a bit.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. Sad I missed it. And what are you looking for? Like, what personality traits or background are you looking for when you hire people? Because I know that you've hired people across different time zones and everything. Yeah, what do you look for?
Yeah, we have a few interesting rules for our hiring.
Mhm.
We want people who are hungry, generally quite entrepreneurial. We like people who are shepherds who would actually bring people with them that they know. Our hiring strategy is generally to hire from the network of people that we already have hired from. And then the kind of the beer test, would you go for a drink with this person? And the other one is, would you be happy if the roles were reversed and they were your boss? So basically looking for people who, who are leadership potential, and can grow and can build a team with them, but also people that you would trust to take control if you're not available. So people who actually you trust in a way that you actually respect them enough to work for them if it happened to be the case. So between those, we generally find good people. We like to see medal winners. We like to see people who have got good backgrounds, good experience, but usually young and hungry would kind of be preferred more of people who actually take a bit of initiative, are trying stuff out, people already get involved. So if you come to an interview and you haven't looked at our platform or haven't really done any sort of digging into it at all, then it's usually a no-brainer straight away. Yeah, and also people who in the modern age, use AI to build stuff. If people haven't, vibe coded something or they haven't played around with, at least a few different AI tools, and you're trying to join an AI company, then it's a quick indication that we're not. You don't want people, AI isn't there for us to come and train new people on. You can go to the AI itself these days so easily and actually ask it to learn about something. Anyone could pick up a whole host of new skills just by interacting with anything as simple as ChatGPT or Gemini, Claude. You can go and learn from it straight away now. You don't need to join a job to get your entire training there. If you want a particular position, you want a particular job, and you want to learn about AI tools, you can learn from the AI tools directly in your own time for free. And that's what it's never been available for. And I get that people don't realize that or don't use it in that way because it's so new and such a new way of learning. But for us, it's a very quick indicator whether or not someone is capable of adapting to new tools and wants to learn from the new tools quickly. So for us, it's a great way of finding good people in interviews very, very fast.
Gotcha. And what advice do you have for other founders who, are dealing with this current time and don't have that added benefit of the right timing, perhaps? Because I know the funding environment has changed. There's tons of people out there with ideas, but maybe they do have a product, maybe they don't. But what would your general advice be?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really funny when people say the funding environment isn't there, and it may well not be, but capital always gets deployed for the right ideas, for the people who are looking at the
Mhm,
right time, and even if investors are being a bit tighter with their money, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. 'Cause it means that they are looking for something, and you actually have to have a bit more work towards product market fit and a bit further along anyway, which puts you in a stronger position. But it also means that the ones who do invest in you have done their homework properly. They're not just throwing money at you for the sake of it. So for anyone who's just starting out or has a product or anything else, the reality is if you haven't got a product, you haven't got something you want to sell, get that, get a quick, cheap version done as quick as you like. It doesn't need a business plan, doesn't need an amazing brand behind it. You can start with literally anything, just start. For people who are a bit further along and have a product and are potentially looking for fundraising, they're going to be in the same boat as us. The investors are going to come back and say, have you got the traction? So it goes back to identifying the problem you're trying to solve and who you're trying to solve it for. And once you
mhm,
have that, a lot of things fit into place. If you know you're solving a particular problem for a particular group of people, all of your messaging is around that. You get a much broader understanding of your market. But if you're starting from the product first and then saying, "Oh, this could do this for this, and it can do this for this," and it's too broad, it's not that great. Whereas if you start super specific on a very focused problem that you've had multiple people saying that they would, not only use it but also pay for it, that's really strong. And then it's a case of rinse and repeat, and try and build up enough of that, and then go to the investors. Because once you've actually shown that you can get out there and do something, once you've shown that you can actually get customers in the door, no matter what it takes, that's probably the strongest point of what they're going to want to see. They're going to want to see that you are willing to put this in front of people, sell it to them, and put yourself on the line to actually get it in. And if that's not the case, then it's almost like you're not willing to bet on yourself first. So why would someone else bet on you?
definitely. Yeah, that's great advice, great perspective. And just to wrap things up here, what are you most excited for about next year, whether in your business or outside of the business?
A great question. 2026 looks like it's actually going to be quite good, I think, all around. For ourselves, yeah, just growth. I mean, we just launched this new product for the offboarding a few weeks ago. Response has been great so far, but obviously looking to actually turn that into true product market fit with enough customers is going to be, fantastic for us. So the next few months for us are crucial for that. So that's what I'm, most excited for in general with the space, the technology, just everything for next year. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more sort of AI in healthcare, a lot more AI sort of generalized adoption. There's everything from AI browser coming out now to probably an AI phone will probably get launched in the next year or so. I think that will have like no apps and just be pure AI interface. I think that will be great. We're actually not too far away from that, I don't think. So as soon as that starts happening, you start to have this like almost like the film Her with Joaquin Phoenix and
Mhm.
Scarlett Johansson. We start to see that sort of her experience, becoming a reality. And I think that's where things start to get super interesting. So excited for that. Other than that, yeah, a lot more automation. Right now AI is useful if you know how to prompt it and work it, but in terms of actually having it actively doing things and becoming really autonomously and actually acting as a true agent for you, I think that's where this year is going to be super exciting in terms of what we can actually achieve, and it really sets the stage for the future. So yeah, excited for a lot of things next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on my podcast. And for everyone else, please tune into the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint.